This topic tonight is the lift bridge, and I love that we're here with Lifty looking at us. We're sort of talking behind its back. This isn't designed as a bridge bashing, although some people may call out the fact that the bridge has a stranglehold on our visual identity here in Duluth, and maybe question that. But I want to say publicly to what is now known, and for some reason, as Old Lifty, that no disrespect, Old Lifty. This is, we're just questioning things. So quickly, to get us in the mood, I'm going to read just a quick excerpt from Barton Sutter's Cold Comfort on the Lift Bridge. Bridges are to Duluth what skyscrapers are to New York. They define the place. We've got the Bong, we've got the Blatnick. We've even got a road called Seven Bridges, but the queen of them all, without a doubt, is the aerial lift bridge. Neither the longest nor the highest bridge in town, the lift is merely the oldest and the loveliest. Wonderfully old-fashioned, graceful, light, and airy, the lift bridge is a pleasure to behold, and over the years has come to serve as a symbol for our city. It's the unofficial logo, and we duplicate it shamelessly on flyers and brochures, on keychains, coffee mugs, and placemats, as if to say the bridge are us, and in some strange way, it is. The lift bridge stands at the center of the city, a sort of X that marks the most important spot in town. This old lattice work of steel and sky is as important to Duluth as the Eiffel Tower is to Paris. The affection that city residents demonstrate for this impractical piece of architecture gives me great hope. It could be an early sign of the true culture here on the Northern Rim, a non-place in particular. If we can feel affection and respect for a bridge, who knows? Someday we may even feel as much for nature, or, impossible as it may seem, each other. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Joe Gunderson. Joe is the Director of Visual Identity here at HTK, and he is tasked with giving us sort of an overview of how you come up with brand identity. And he's going to do that in 15 minutes. And normally I wouldn't ask any person to do that, but I know Joe is up to the challenge, so thank you so much, Joe.
What's that? Separate those things. Is that what? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for telling me that before. Sorry for that.
And I'll turn on your projector.
So I'd first like to just, again, thank you all for coming. And then also the Duluth Art Institute for having this. I mean, this is what it's about, and to have this conversation. So, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. All right. I'd just like to know, raise your hand if you are a student. Just like to see who's here. Okay. Awesome. I'd probably raise my own hand because I feel that that I'm a student. If you are somewhere in your profession, you feel like you always have things known. I think it's time to change. So I always pursue that. The talk tonight that I'm starting, is there a way to get this brighter?
Well, you turn the lights off.
Yeah.
It's getting brighter.
Heating up. Okay. Well, it's called Identity of a City, and I thought this was a cool band name. So that's where I went with this. When we talk about identity, before you start with an icon, I think you have to know what you're talking about. And the three things that I'm going to be focusing on are identities in three different ways. And throughout this, I'm going to finish with examples of that. The three examples are corporate identity, cultural identity, and sensory identity. It seems that, when I first started talking about and looking at this, my job most days is about corporate identity. That's how it starts. So this is any combination of colors, typography, graphics, photos, illustrations, messagings, or tone of voice to communicate or market an organization. I think we all know this, and this is kind of an easy way to start, right? Now, the cultural identity is where it tends to get a little bit more abstract. In these are definitions that I created, so don't go posting these are actual statements. But this is where I feel like it's best to have this conversation with our city. So this is a macro look. It's the beliefs, customs, arts, history, and architecture, geographic area, and landmarks of a particular place or region. Tonight we're talking about Duluth. Now, sensory identity is something I think in the last few years, more and more this is becoming apparent. We want an experience. We want to know how deep communication goes. And a lot of days I feel that, design does part of that. I think we have a tremendous privilege to be able to communicate in a design communication way. So this is the textures, and I use the word textures because you feel it. It's not just something that that you can grab. It's not just something that, it goes deep. And so the textures is something that I just feel like you feel it. It's touch, sound, taste, smell, and sight, all the senses that we use each day that trigger an emotional memory or experience. I'm going to try to get this done in 15 minutes. So, for the first time coming over the hill of Duluth, I hear time after time people are just, blown away. Like that is something that sits within them, and I think that is what we're talking about, that emotional experience. So to lighten things up, came up with a game. So blurt out what you think this city is. And I'll give you a little pretense. A specific landmark or could be bridge, might be missing out of the photo. So, and not all of them are cities. We'll start here.
New York. New York.
How did you get that? I didn't even get it, and I did it.
Los Angeles.
Wait, somewhere? Somebody said it. Yep. Now this one was incredibly hard. I do not recommend photoshopping this one. You're great at this game. 20 points. Now if anybody gets this one, who said it? Yeah, We're looking at my presentation. There it is. So the reason why I went through this exercise is to remove an icon, that is part of our identity is really difficult. And so this talk that I think we're all, it's looking at things, not necessarily how to remove it, but how to look at it in a different way. So a new perspective. I have a friend, his name's Sean Thompson. He may or may not be here tonight, but he's been working with photography for the past, maybe 10 years, as a lot of you have. And it is the most photographed thing in the city. And what I love about this representation is the bridge stays the same. It's made of steel. It doesn't really change, but it's really about the things around it. It's the season that we're in. It's the lake has different effects. The sky, the perspective, everything changes each day. It could be 20 degrees and then 80 the next. It's kind of the fun city that we live in. So this representation, he sees this, this photograph and looks at this representation a lot. And so he decided to write over it and to have fun with the icon, look at it in a different way. And sometimes that's just being playful. You know, you don't necessarily know where you're going or have a direct idea of what this means, but he created something. So he calls it Bizarro Duluth, and I love that it is bizarre. It is kind of crazy. It's random. Corporate icon for Duluth. About 10 years ago, HTK had the privilege of working, at the time it was the Duluth Convention and Visitors Bureau. We had the task because they were going through a name change and it was called Visit Duluth. And 10 years ago, that was extremely progressive. It was modern. Not a lot of cities, especially small cities, were doing this. So that task, when I started this process, you know, obviously you go through the expected looks at what, you know, the bridge, you know, the lighthouses, and you start to, you know, work these in design, but you have a good frame of mind of how you're starting it. But sometimes when you're working through it, it becomes a process, obviously, in its own. So this is the final logo that they had picked. And again, I think I had some versions that were a little bit more literal, and that's where I'd like to just bring up this contrast, because a lot of icons and a lot of identity work is looking at things not realistic but abstract, or in a different style. And that style can go in so many different ways. But this contrast, we see things in a realistic terms. I mean, Picasso, when he first did his, you know, his artwork, it looked, you know, out of sorts. But in his eyes, it was simple. And that's the one thing, is always focus on trying to communicate something simple, as complex as the area Lift Bridge is. So new icon for Duluth, as we're here tonight. These are ideas to at least start the conversation. They're not answers, and a lot of you are problem solvers. So when we're talking about cultural assets, and again, you can apply this not just to a city, you can apply it to your businesses. If you're a designer for you know, an agency, start with the things that you do know. Start to collect these things. Landmarks, history, geographic location. You know, we're at the head of the lake, of Lake Superior. That in itself is an icon. The state of Minnesota, you know, the outdoors is becoming more prevalent, and you know, the expanse of the trail systems. And I guess I should be putting outdoors and potential together, because the trail systems that Duluth is, you know, working on right now, that is potential. We don't necessarily, it's still being developed, but to keep our sight on where we're moving is kind of important. The people, businesses, and events, this is, again, I think where we talk about that sensory feeling and that way to experience something. The people are what make Duluth. We do have these things that are set as landmarks, but the people and the businesses create identity. I love that. I won't name and call out businesses right now, but we have such an interesting culture right now happening in the last 2 years, and things are sparking. You look over by Frost River in Bend Paddle in the craft corridor, that they're starting to name and identify this certain area within Duluth, and that's exciting. And everybody has an opportunity to be a part of that. 2013, we've been 2012. Well, let me step back for a second. For a little over 10 years, I worked on the Guide to Duluth, and again, quite a project to be a part of. The first 5, 6, 7 years, the bridge was almost always needed on the cover. You know, it was, what are we going to do? It's got to be the cover. And this wasn't directed necessarily internally, but what the client was comfortable with. And you know, over the years, we fought and fought and fought, you know, to get something like this. This is a representation of, I think, collectively looking at the experience, the sensory feeling that people, you know, visitors come to have, and also that we get to enjoy. So this was a big win for us. Take a moment was, the theme, and I love how this came out. It's a collage of feelings. If you are, a bike enthusiast, if you are, a green smoothie drinker like myself, you have an appreciation. But obviously, the craft beer movement, the music that we have, it all builds what Duluth is and its identity. I'm just going to go through a couple spreads that we had developed. We highlighted about 8 photographers that year, and it was always a challenge, looking at Duluth in a new lens, in a new perspective, and this was great that we invited 8 different people to see what their view was. Sam Elvar, this was his definition of the lake. Jack Rendelich, I believe this was theater and performance art. Arts and culture. Everybody might like this one. Jeff Rye had done this one. And again, I love the photography, how close it is to grabbing and to smell and to taste, to be a part of. Music scene. So I think I'm pretty close to 15 minutes, but I just wanted to share, I don't know if this is a poem, haiku, or limerick that I wrote, but it's something. I think all designers think that they're a writer. And writers think that, they just want to be writers. But I think there's a secret. All right.
It's a sonnet.
Yeah. I know, right? Hold on, I'll go through it fast. I remain in the distance as I hear a blow of a horn sound through the trees. Then quietness, it must be close. I tighten my grips and off I go. Every push of my pedal is harder than the last. My eyes begin to water as I glide on each curve. This mountain has quite a strong spirit. I continue to coast into the valley, and boy, is this grand. I come upon smoother trails that slow down my pace. I believe this is the one that will build. The waters are close, they seem very still and invite me to stay, but I must keep going, I'm sad to say. I push my bike aside and start for high ground. The terrain is rugged, lush, and free. I feel like a wild animal as I must keep climbing. This hill is endless, and become thankful it's not snowing. I'll break through the trees, and it's amazing to see a park surrounded by huge trees. Above it all is a tower, I think. I run to the top as my clock begins to tick. A few steps from the top, and I feel a power that I've never felt before. The strength of the wind is quite heavy up here. The view from this point is hard to describe. It opens your mind and slows your eyes. That lake out there is quite a sight. It looks like an ocean as it touches the sky. It is superior to all others, now I know why. Another horn echoes, but how can that be? It's only 3:30. They must be early. I break from my slumber and head to the sea. I quickly jump on a trail that is meant for a hike. On and on it seems to go, with all colors of brilliant blue and brilliant green flash past my periphery. Yeah, I use periphery. My eyes are wide open than ever before to spot that loose gravel calling my knee to listen. Branches of pine, birch, and popple sting my cheek, and I try to keep up. This trail seems endless, which some days is quite nice. I must be getting closer as the buildings become clear. Out of a jungle and into another, it's like a different world. With these buildings so classic yet grand, the brick and old stone has been settled for years. Down paved walks and around at each corner, the buildings take shape, none like the one before. The avenue leads me to the front of the bay. This is one big open space with a stage waiting to be played. Around Mr. Irvin and over the slip, I dart to the pier to get just one look. My breath is on empty, but I can't help but stare. Was this what was calling me, or the whole journey I bear? So I ended this. I have hope, right? I know. I wanted to end that to leave you just with, we all work through different processes in our jobs. Logo design, through different projects. And, you know, sometimes we have so much focus on finishing the goal. What am I getting to? And that was a little bit of representation of enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, get better at your process of understanding what got you there. So, thank you.
And next up is Tommy Cronquist. Tommy is the owner, founder, operator, everything of Medium Control, which is maybe visible from here also. It's actually just above Dairy Queen. And what I love about Tommy's work is that he starts with his passions and starts with what is close to him. So, so that is what he's going to talk to us tonight about. So thank you, Tommy.
Hello. My name's Tommy Cronquist. Nice work, Joe. My name's Tommy Cronquist. I run the Medium Control. I'm going to cheat and use a couple videos so I don't have to talk the whole time. But we're going to do that. So this is an edit that I did of a previous video when we transitioned our store and studio from Park Point to our new location in Canal Park above Dairy Queen. You're gonna get blasted. So.
That's okay.
So this is the space, what it looks like when we had our store. We recently moved our store. So we had our store on Park Point for 2 years and we ran out of space. We moved to Canal Park and we found a space that we liked and had the store there for 2 years and we were having a baby, so we decided running retail. It was an amazing experience and I absolutely loved the design process of opening up a raw space like that and designing it from A to Z. But the time came to make a decision. Our online store was growing to a point where we needed to concentrate on that. And so we moved the store upstairs, and now on the 3rd floor, we still have a large section. It's our mini store. And we have our studio in the same place that we renovated this space that you guys just saw. So my talk is just gonna Oh. Is there full screen? Is there Acrobat on this computer?
Yeah.
How we can do?
We do like a PDF view, the very first one, PDF display. No?
Sorry. Slideshow. There we go. Thank you.
Nice.
No, don't start. Oop. Okay. Sorry. Slide two. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Maybe that has to be on. So I went to UMD, and when I was going to school, I did not think that I could have a job in Duluth. I thought the design scene was really small at that time, and I didn't know if I wanted to jump right into the agency life, and I didn't know if I was ready to. I didn't know really what I wanted to do with design, actually. So I moved down to the cities and started working with a couple friends that had businesses, and I started Medium Control, the brand. So we have 3 companies. We have Medium Control, the brand that we sell apparel, art prints, which is letterpress and screen prints, and we have a design studio doing graphic design, web design, and identity. And we also just started last year doing print for hire and doing specialty screen printing projects, which we just did a little project for HTK. And it's been great to meet people in the community and do specialty projects for people in the cities to hear, and they drive up to work with us, which has been really fun, and it kind of opens up my eyes to different types of design too. So I can go on and on about that, but so we do a lot of different kind of design work, but I wanted to concentrate on identity and kind of show you. I usually don't show this type of work, so I wanted to kind of break into how I live here and work with people all over the country, and so that's where we're gonna go. So we had our store on Park Point, and that was basically for our goods. I was working from home and going back and forth. My wife was running that. And then we had our space in Canal Park. And then it was just nice knowing once we moved to Canal Park, we had a sense of space that we needed, and we sell globally. We've sold to over 40 countries all over, and it's all from Duluth, which has been something that I didn't imagine when I was going to school, because the internet was small, and now the internet's a good chunk of our life, which has been great. So this is actually a screen print that I'm releasing soon. That's a couple of colors that I'm working on. So just representing what we do worldwide. So this is, I'm going to run through logos super quick and just run through a plethora of them and do a little case study of one at the end. So this is one of my first film clients I worked for, a company in DC called Fine Films. This is a fund they started from their first film called the Tonga Fund. And this is a foundation that we started with Fine Films as well called Cycle It Away, and it's about the main actor in their first film and how he wanted to escape from the camps that he was involved with and just bike away. So there's going to be bike rides associated with it. This is an experimental site that we have, Nonstop Thought. This is for a friend that fishes in Alaska, sells in Minnesota, seafood, salmon. This is Identity that I worked with an agency in Chicago. It was redoing the identity of Mr. Lucky's Lounge, which was Michael Jackson's first lounge that he played at in Gary, Indiana. And this is basically just a redraw of the identity, but it was a fun project to do. They tore down the building and screen printed that logo on all the bricks and sold the bricks off. And this is our logo for our small control, which is our kids line. This is a New York film production company, a sound production company in Los Angeles. A husband from Cairo, Egypt, a wife from Milan, Italy, film producers. Seattle specialty goes into ethical practices and businesses. That's his project. A filmmaker that we work with, Quiet Pictures from New York and Mexico. A friend's kidney foundation. A new company in Duluth called Zenith Companies, specializing in real estate and a bunch of new ventures that he's working on. A brand that we did for a craft show down in Minneapolis at the Midtown Global Market, No Coast, coming up December 4th. We should go. It's good. A new logo for a company in New Jersey that sells vintage guitar works. And I work with 3-5, the guys that share our space with on that. Food co-op in San Francisco. Brand or a side project that I'm working on that is documenting old type on buildings. That is a good chunk of our landscape in Duluth. So I'm just starting to archive that.
Is that a purposeful typo?
Excuse me?
Is that a
Need another
purposeful
L.
typo?
I redid the.
I kind of, yeah.
It was different, so now you have to remember that. Company out of Los Angeles, Missing Pictures film company that I've been working with, that I'm going to reference in the case study. A company out of North Dakota that brings up water, cleans the water from all this oil work that's going on and makes clean water with salt water technology. One of our favorite bands got to work with Paul Connolly on designing their new record album, and now they're using it as one of their logos. Photographer in Minneapolis, camera rental place in Portland, a New York PR firm, and a wedding invite monogram that we did for our first gay wedding, Joel and Kyle. An interior design studio in St. Paul, and our original logo that we started our company with. And now I'm going to break into the case study super quick. This was one of our first clients, and they were doing the score for the film War Dance, and they did the whole score. This is the Fine Films filmmaker that did this, and the logo on the very bottom, if you can see, was the Fine Films logo, and that's the company that we've been working with for over 10 years now. So that was my first step into documentary films, working with them so I do absolutely A to Z with them. I enter projects from when they're almost done or right from the get-go and title design with them. So this one was nominated for Academy Award. Michael Moore's film beat them that year, but they got crazy amount of press for that film, and it just kind of skyrocketed my little niche for documentary films. And these are some of the documentary films that I work with. I had a touch in every one of these. Either I did the websites for all of them, but some of them I did the title design, packaging for the DVD once it reached that market. And it's just, they all have been ethical projects, and it's just been fun reaching out to and meeting people that are so passionate about their projects. And it's just been a great experience. And oddly, a good chunk of the films are in Africa, and most of the people that I work with are women filmmakers. So it's just been a cool intro to documentary films for me. And it's just a very rewarding process.
You should have a festival.
Yes.
You should have a little festival.
Yeah.
Something. It'd be fun.
Yeah, they actually could bring them to the cinema. It'd be fun. Yeah. This is one of them that's coming out. It's called Book of Changes. And I was working with Elizabeth, which was the Missing Pictures logo that I showed you. Her film is about the I Ching, and her father translated the book, which is an old Chinese, it's like 1000 BC old, and it's about ways of life and concentrated on hexagrams as a form of communication. And it's just, I got really into it, and this is the title design that I did for this project. This is the coming soon page. and this is a hexagram up there, which means water. And so this is the coming soon page, and she's doing the picture lock pretty soon, so it's coming out. This is the book that her father, there's a master copy, it's pretty much like the Bible, but it's in old Chinese, so you have to he spent his whole life translating the book, and he made a book about the translation. So her process is about her father's lifelong passion about doing this, and just about his life and her journey to get that story. So I started getting really interested in the hexagrams and the meanings of everything, and just the structure of all the, basically just how it mimics typography, and it was just really interesting to me. So I got caught up in that and got really into it. And at the same time, we were having a baby, and so it had just some correlations with that. I had the ideas going on, well, we have a storefront and we have a logo for that, and we have a cat called Watson, and we have a logo for that, and we make a bunch of products based on that, and it's just ever growing. And so Holden's my son's name, Holden Kevin, and he was coming to work with us for half days every day, and decided it's about time to make a logo for him. So I have a million sketches, but the main ideas came together with the H&K for his first and middle name, or my last name, Cronquist. So after a million sketches, I kind of came up with this foundation. Eventually start turning the type, and just kind of recollected with some of those hexagrams I was working on at the same time. And this one meant heaven. I remembered heaven, sky, and it, if you look up hexagrams or I Ching about that, you'll start seeing how they're used in our culture a lot. Like even Jay-Z used it for one of his album covers, which is, I think it was heaven. But you'll start seeing them everywhere, and it's just very interesting how they're everywhere in our culture. So I just Googled heaven and looked up the Chinese translation of that, and the Japanese translation was the same thing, which was cool. So sky, heaven, and what came down to was this was his final logo that I came up with him, and it kind of mimicked the whole simplicity, the equal distance of in the hexagrams theory, everything has to be equal, and this is kind of what came out of it, and this was his logo. So that is my talk, and I'm going to end it on a little short video that I recently worked on with a company in South Dakota, and we were sent a couple rolls of Super 8, and I wrote a letter to my unborn son and grandson. So it was a process over the course of a year while Christy was pregnant. And just to go back, Christy runs, if I didn't say this before, Christy runs everything in our business. She does I just do all the design and printing. She does all the marketing, the sales, the customer service, everything, and she still is raising her son every day, and he comes to work with us every day for half days. So this is a video that kind of shows our studio a little bit. And just a nice keepsake for our family too.
Mr. Holden Kevin Conquest. When you were trying to make your way into this world, a new awareness of unmatched love was awoken inside your mom and myself.
It
was not the easiest road. It was not the easiest road to get you here. There were tears and fears, but you made it. Safe and sound. Your mom has done and is doing more for you than you'll ever know. She has turned into a superhuman, watching you full time and running her business full time. Are you helping her? Because I'm not sure how she's doing. In fact, there's a newfound happiness. It's all because of you. Since you're only a couple months old, you've been coming to work every day for happiness. You're not old enough to old days yet. Sometimes it's a challenge, but definitely worth it. I never thought now that you're here, we couldn't have it any other way. Soon,
Before
before you know it, you'll be getting your hands dirty in all sorts of studio activities. Coloring, painting, screen printing, and getting strong in the letterpress.
What's your favorite color?
It is true, we work a lot at our company, Medium Control,
Medium control.
which will probably be your first job. Legally speaking, there's a labor of love in what we do, and we really like what we do. Luckily, we have a place on the globe where many people come to take a vacation. Our daily walks are on the shores of one of the biggest lakes in the world. Some people fear Duluth winters. You'll see how we embrace it and take full advantage.
Unfortunately, my time with my dad was cut short. I can only hope we have the relationship that I had with him. It's important to remember and to know the past.
It is important to remember and know the past.
Luckily, I met your mom. We met in a castle far, far away, but it's important to remember and to know the past.
Most future objects seem to be shinier, faster, with less personal thinking involved. Perhaps that is why I love elements of our work that dive into the past and have not changed in 100 years.
Not changed in 100 years.
Screen printing and letterpress definitely share these traits. The craft is slower, older, dirtier, and the process and result is unmatched.
There are no rules, and it is up to you to bring your own ideas and style to the table.
Are you going to laugh at these old ways of creating, or are you share the interest? We're curious to find out.
We're curious to find out.
I'm nervous when my screens you'll see in your lifetime. Your mom and I look at way too many screens the way it is, and it seems to be getting worse every year. I can only hope in a society growing in such a fast, anti-attention span pace, you'll find the time to appreciate the simple things in life.
Simple things in life.
Reading full books, not just a blog post. Getting out in nature and truly experiencing it, not just watching a video about trees. Learning to cook, not grabbing the fastest food.
It's today, and tomorrow will be here before you and I.
Today and tomorrow will be here before you and I know it. I look forward to teaching and showing you as much as possible. We do not have it all figured out, and most likely we never will. We are fortunate to have you help us along the way. Much love, little guy. Your dad, on the trumpets.
Thank you.
And Tommy's going to hand off his mic to Cody Paulson. Cody is the Senior Design Director at Swim Creative, owner of Jambox Shred Gear, purveyor of Duluth photos at Port City Supply on Instagram. You should all follow him. And he's currently working on a project called Stack that I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about as well. And mostly he just likes making things and pizza. So
Pizza's good.
Pizza's also good. So I asked, Cody will talk about what Cody wants to talk about, but I think what was interesting for me about Cody was this Port City Supply really was interested in the industrial backdrop of Duluth. We love the outdoors, we engage with that, but I think I loved seeing Cody really engage with this post-industrial landscape that we have here. So go ahead, Cody.
Switcheroo here. We're gonna put it on the floor. Tony, did you do slideshow together?
Yeah.
Sweet. Alright, there, one away. What's up, everyone? My name's Cody Paulson. I'm Senior Design Director at Swim Creative, an advertising and branding agency here in Duluth. I've been working with Swim for just over 6 years now, and when I started it was just myself and my creative director, Patrice Bradley, sharing a tiny little office. And since then we've grown into a bustling studio of about 20. Yeah, the team's here. What's up, guys? In that time I've had the pleasure of working on all kinds of really cool projects, ranging from identity design and brand design, digital, print, illustration, even some videography, motion graphics, and art direction. One time I had to coordinate a photo shoot in the middle of a bustling hospital. That was pretty interesting. Then there was a time I had to shoot close-ups of a guy in a Speedo with a sponge stuffed down the front of it. But that's a story for a different time. I also have a bunch of side projects that I do in my spare time. Port City Supply is an iPhone photography project that I've been working on for a while now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. I run a small clothing company called Jambox Shred Gear, which I've been doing for about 8 years now. I'm a print addict at heart, so I actually design and I screen print all of the apparel myself. Kind of like Tommy. I also produce videos that showcase the skate and snowboarding community. My last video called Downtown Sounds was filmed entirely on my iPhone, and Andy showed it at Free Range Film Festival this summer, so it was really cool. My newest venture is called Stack. It's a collective with 3 other local designers, which I think are all here. So, hey. Our hope with Stack is to really be advocates for art and design culture here in Duluth. Our future plans include opening an online art gallery and shop, offering our screen printing services to the public, as well as organizing design meetups. I decided today that my presentation was going to be called Dive Deep, mainly for the brownie points back at the swim office. But I also really just wanted to talk about the process of designing an identity and the work and the research that goes into getting a good outcome. Building brand identities is a huge part of what I do at Swim, and it's usually my favorite projects to work on. A brand, in short, is just the way the public perceives their business. These are a few bits from Marshall School's brand that I helped create at Swim. Obviously, there are several visual aspects to creating a brand, like logos and brochures and websites. This is where my work is primarily concentrated. But there's a lot of other more subtle aspects of a brand, like how it speaks, how it interacts, how it grows and functions, what its experience is like, as well as what the culture is like. Just real quick, 5 things that I think make a great brand. Number 1, honesty, because nobody likes being lied to. Number 2, compelling. A great brand evokes interest or admiration, and it really makes a connection. A great brand is substantial. It has depth, and it has a story to tell. Nobody likes a one-sided conversation. So a great brand is one that respects and engages with its audience. This will create longer lasting relationships and build a better understanding of the brand. But above all else, a great brand is authentic. It's true to itself and it's true to its audience. This will make that brand unique, even amongst other brands in the same industry. Creating an authentic brand is a lot like being a detective. It requires careful research, strategy, and observation. It means asking the tough questions and attempting to truly understand that business or organization. But buried in that massive mountain of information you're going to uncover is the story that connects with its audience, the inspiration that drives its employees to get out of bed every morning, and the key to what makes that brand tick. Every summer, over 120 artists of all disciplines gather on the shores of Lake Superior for Park Point Art Fair. The fair approached Swim to create a brand identity and promotional materials for its 44th anniversary. I was tasked with creating the visual identity. My challenge was to create a professional yet playful logo and graphic language that really celebrated the event's rich history and all the culture that goes on. It was a tricky project. The identity had to be as unique as the art and the fair, but it had to be simple enough to not overpower it. And it had to equally represent artists of many different backgrounds, styles, and mediums. After a few days of researching and sketching, I was still pretty stumped. So like any designer does when they're really baffled by a project, I turn to my environment for inspiration. The fair's location is truly one of its most impressive traits. A 7-mile sand spit dumped by the world's largest freshwater lake over the past hundreds or even thousands of years. But the lake itself was proving to be too big and too abstract to really embody in a logo. And let's face it, there's just nothing particularly interesting about sand visually. I don't think this logo is going to fly. Yeah, it's boring, and it's even more uninspired. The only visual representation that I can think of that would really be any more inauthentic. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm going to let Matt talk about this one next. So after scouring through page after page of Google Images, sort of looking for inspiration, I came across this photo. I really like the way sailboats always sort of pepper the Duluth horizon, and the way they seem to glide so effortlessly across it. And year after year, the sailors reconvene to share their love and their passion of the hobby, much like the artists at the end of Park Point do. Then I also realized that a sailboat sort of looks like an abstracted K. I was really intrigued by this, and I stopped and thought, maybe there's something more here. I went back and I looked at art displayed in previous years, and that's when things really started to get interesting. If you look past the art's superficial traits like size, color, and texture, you'll notice the same basic forms underneath that compose our alphabet. I sketched out a bunch of letters like this and then roughened the edges a bit to sort of reflect the crafted nature of the festival. This became the basis for the whole visual identity, typography that was literally inspired by its environment. Next, I used a system to develop a logo monogram. I really liked the way the nuances and the differences of the different letters sort of represented all these different artists of different backgrounds coming together into one place. And that's especially evident in this video, which is not going to play, so we'll just pass that on. To tie all of the ideas back together, I use the sailboat illustration as one of the main recurring visuals. The graphic style played out really well on some printed materials like these postcards. I also use that style to design posters and bookmarks and a sandwich board and some other signage. All in all, I was really happy with how the project turned out. Sure, I could have settled with the lift bridge logo or even a pile of sand if I was really lazy. But I think this is a really good example of how if you dive deep and really dig into what you're designing, it's going to lead you to unexpected and unique results. In the end, the extra effort is worth it, especially when you have to look at your logo 15 feet tall on a banner. As I mentioned earlier, designers often turn to their environments for inspiration. Ever since acquiring my first camera phone, I've been documenting the little things that catch my eye. Eventually, I amassed a fairly substantial collection of Duluth photos, and they weren't of the lift bridge or of the lake. I found that I was particularly intrigued by the remnants of man's interaction with his environment. The streets, the architecture, and basically anything that portrayed the city's industrial heritage. I'd always stop to shoot the most mundane things. The way the wiring was strung alongside of an old brownstone, the color of bricks after 100 years of exposure to these harsh elements, or the typography in an old hand-painted sign. If you're taking a picture of that, I would get from puzzled passersby, but it never ceases to amaze me. The stories that something as simple as a garage door has to tell if you simply read them. And even more interesting, when you view this photo in context with others, a colorful and abstract representation of the entire Duluth landscape begins to emerge. By this point, I needed a way to archive and to show off my photos. This was the beginning of Port City Supply Co. I created an Instagram and a Tumblr, and I've been publishing about 2 photos a day ever since. That was 3 years ago, And since the project has sort of spiraled into a full-on urban obsession. But the occasional landscape does find its way in there. So far, I've published almost 1,000 photos. And I've shot tens of thousands. I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to get around to sorting through all of them. I've grown a substantial following, I've met some really amazing like-minded photographers, and I've even traded books with people from all over the world. This one's from Julie Gebhardt in San Francisco. I've even had the honor of showing Port City work in 2 recent exhibitions. This was last year at Prove Gallery in a show called Types. The show was focused primarily on typography and the alphabet. And for my project, I was assigned A through D for letters, and all of these were found on the streets of Duluth and then compiled together. I thought it was just a nice way to portray Duluth style. And this year I had a self-titled show at the Duluth Art Institute in the Corridor Gallery, which was a really amazing experience. But why am I telling you all this? Because these are just more reasons for me to believe that when you dig deep for inspiration, you're going to come up with something truly amazing. What started as a simple collection of snapshots has evolved into a fully fledged photography project. And what's more is it's entirely changed the way I see Duluth as an historic, vibrant, textured city with so much character that the lift bridge is just a cliche. Thanks.
And what I should have also said is that Cody is the designer behind all of our Design Duluth materials. So you've seen Cody's work already, so thank you for that. Next up, and our final speaker of the evening is Matt Olin. Matt is a designer, illustrator, educator right here in Duluth, of course. His work has been featured by Wired, Mashable, Under Consideration, and the Washington Post, and it has been recognized by AdFed and Rockport. Matthew is an assistant professor of graphic design at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. He's also the father of a beautiful 15-week-old girl. So you'll have to forgive Matt if, you'll have to give Matt some patience because I'm sure he has not slept very much. So everyone welcome Matt Olin.
Does this work?
Yeah.
It's fun to see Cody and Tommy and I have been friends for a few years now, and it's fun to see their work spill over and for us all to be gathered here talking about it in different ways. Also, for those of you that are parents, if you watch Tommy's video, he's wearing a tula, which is the best designed child carrier. So design isn't just a part of our lives when we're producing for clients, but it's also a part of our everyday lives. I would also like to touch on Annie's comment that I have sleepless nights. Cody and Tommy have made designers look like we all do things by hand, and most recently I was up till 2 a.m. stitching the alphabet into saltine crackers. So that happens. There we go. All right. Thank you. So we're going to talk about how much I love logos that depict Duluth's lift bridge. My name is Matt Olin, and I'm assistant professor of graphic design at University of Minnesota Duluth. And I also have a very dry sense of humor. So this is the lift bridge. My mom took this photo on a recent trip out to Duluth. Tourists love this. When I first came to Duluth, I'm from Colorado originally, and my wife Erica and I went down to the canal on one of our first dates, and definitely took a photo from a similar angle. This would be the City of Duluth's logo. If you look at the handouts that you were given, I have to thank Jenna, Kasura, and Laura, who are helping with this entire Design Duluth series. And for weeks, we actually poured over what this prompt would be on the sheet. We wanted people to think outside the bridge, and we wanted to pose a question You know, if you had to get cars over to the other side of Park Point, but you had to get ships under, what would you do? And we kept coming back to the lift bridge. So it didn't really seem like this fair question to like restructure highway systems. So instead we gave you the opportunity to build your own logo. If you look at the City of Duluth logo, it has the lift bridge, it has birds, it has downtown, it has hillside, it has a boat, which Cody touched on, sailboats in our region, and it has water. So we've, when we set out to give the sheet to you, we wanted to highlight on that. So what I want to get at is that when we start to just use objects for an experience, we limit the potential meaning that it has. So if you look, you have choices between downtown, Inger Tower, sailboats, potholes, rocks, the lift bridge, radio towers, various things that you may attach yourself to here in Duluth. I'll use my wife as a case study. This is my wife and I. You can see our dogs in the corner. And I just imagine that she was to go through this worksheet and start to choose different objects and create her own logo of Duluth. She's a trail runner. She likes locally sourced food. She enjoys time running with her friends on both trails and the lake walk, and she works downtown. So I imagine this would be what her logo might look like. It's got the lake walk, it's got the trails, it's got the trees, it's got the apple and the birds, and of course, the city of Duluth, Minnesota. I then thought about my dogs, because my dogs are a huge part of our lives. They have a much smaller scope of what Duluth is to them. And so then I thought they might choose, they really like wildlife, they like trails, they like trees. So if they were to make a logo for Duluth, it might look something like that. I started to also think about, we just passed an election season. If you were in tune with the election, then you may remember that certain candidates held certain views on what they thought Duluth was and maybe painted a certain picture about our town. And so although these icons are relatable on a very surface level, by being so literal, we run the risk of showing only one side. So if this was another candidate in the mayoral race, we have the lift bridge from the town he grew up in. We have the hillside that he lives on. We have downtown Duluth that he loves. And then we have something that kind of looks like weights. We add a pothole to that. And then our downtown is riddled from a pipeline with heroin. And this is the picture that we start to paint of our city. Going back to this logo, and one of the more intriguing aspects of this build your own logo is that the city golf course is actually ripped off the City of Duluth logo to create this mark. Which then leads me to think that we've invested a lot of energy into an object that isn't always used in the best ways that best represent it. Club Saratoga uses the lift bridge in their logo. Sometimes when the logo is used, it doesn't always make sense. Here is a CrossFit that is basically showing that this guy is big enough to fit between the two prongs of the lift bridge, not actually capable of holding it up. So these are just 4 depictions of the lift bridge. Those are 4 of them. There are 12 of them. And there are over 80 logos that I have found without too much effort, because I have a 14-week-old baby, that use the lift bridge here in Duluth. One of them is the Visit Duluth logo, which is the one that makes the most sense because you're attracting people to this region that love that icon. So there's also this interesting disconnect that the lift bridge is, in and of itself, it is a bridge. And some of the depictions of the logo don't actually include the bridge part of it. So we have the Duluth Kids Club, and there's no actual bridge to cross over. We have the Twin Ports Flyboard Rentals. Again, they don't actually, I think these are the jet things that propel you up in the water. Yeah, so this is where you can rent them from. The Gobble Gallop also does not have the bridge part connecting. Just things I noticed. If you want to see more of them, they are on Instagram at Lift Bridge Logos. Posted maybe 35, and we'll continue to post the rest of them. But then it brought up this idea of what if we remove the lift bridge from the logo, does it still have meaning? So if we take the police logo and remove the lift bridge, our police now drive around in oarboats. If we take the Duluth Sign Company and remove the lift bridge, they just have a lot of open air. And probably, I put this one in because it's Annie's favorite, but if we take the Eat Downtown logo and remove the lift bridge, load, please. There's nothing. So I think it brings up an interesting point that we're putting a lot of weight into this object, but not actually telling the users a lot about what they're getting into based on their logo. You can view more of these facelifts, get it, lift, on Tumblr at that URL. But back in 2010, I was trying to depict my love for Duluth, and a lot of people wear flannel, and so I drew this picture of a flannel shirt with the lift bridge inside of it, and resurrected it for this presentation because I do think that we can't live in this area without somehow attaching ourselves to this bridge. If anyone knows how to make this shirt, I will pay good money for it. So how do we actually represent an area that we love without resorting to common imagery? Another aspect I thought about was Lake Superior. I didn't have time to sit down and gather all the Lake Superior logos, but I did screenshot Google image search. And here are all the logos for various Lake Superior things that use the shape of the lake in them. I won't go into detail about how many more there are, but it is quite a significant amount. So that got me thinking. There's this book, Designing Brand Identity by Elina Wheeler. It says brand identity takes disparate elements and unifies them into whole systems. So if you have a logo and it's working as part of a greater whole, where we see a lot of times a lift bridge resorted to as the default option doesn't leave a lot of opportunity to take that brand further. So I started thinking about this. Again, my wife and I really like to hike with our dogs. And I was like, what would this look like if we didn't resort to lakes and nature? You see these signs everywhere. They mark the Superior hiking trail from one end to the other. It's how you stay on course. What would this look like if we redesigned it? And I came up with this really friendly sign that says hi. And it's an H and an I and a hiker. If you put it in context of a mark, though, it doesn't always work out. So, Superior hiking trail logo redesign fail. A few years ago, some buddies and myself wanted to start a site. It never really took off, but it was to highlight different individuals living and working in Duluth. To really, Minneapolis has one. It's called This Is Minneapolis. So we started a site called This Is Duluth. This was around the time hashtags were taking off. And so when I was working on the identity for it, I took that idea of the hashtag and used it. It is also the basis for another nice flannel pattern. And what was more intriguing about this was not the fact that it was a hashtag made out of flannel, but the fact that for each person that we highlighted, we could alter it to their two favorite colors and create a system that would help show the individual characteristics that united them to the region. Another one of my local clients that I do work for is Locally Laid. They're an egg company. All of their eggs are produced within 300 miles of distribution. They started their first farm in Renshaw. And I got a phone call from Jason, and he said, hey Matt, I know who you are. I want you to design a logo. I'm going to start a chicken farm. So I said yes. One thing that, we're talking about these obvious solutions and non-obvious solutions. It is a chicken. There is an egg. I did have to customize the bowl of the egg to actually fit the egg shape, which is kind of nice. And when this is animated on my website, Lola actually lays the egg down. Again, it doesn't work in PowerPoint. So there is that. What we did do, though, through Lola is we created an attachment that the city of Duluth fell in love with, has supported endlessly through multiple endeavors for Lola to raise awareness about small agriculture. Around this time, social media was kind of taking off as well, with brands posting about holidays. And this was their t-shirt. When they started, they actually didn't have eggs, they just had t-shirts. Sorry, Lucy, you're here. And Jason, you're here too. They had t-shirts and it was wonderful, and people started associating with the t-shirts. So when holidays came around, we created these fun little graphics. Trick or treat. I'm glad I'm not a turkey day. And she's making a list and chicken it twice. But we were able to develop a visual language using these simple geometric forms and the cheeky play on the words of locally laid. People fall in love with brands, they trust them, and they believe in their superiority. Locally Laid has shown this time and time again through people supporting their business, supporting the healthy and ethical treatment of animals, and the production of food that is delicious as well. Not putting the lift bridge in Locally Laid's logo has allowed them to expand into other markets. Some of these farms are not current, but they do have their eggs in the Chicago region as well as the Twin Cities, and have been able to spread their reach by not staying confined to Duluth or having the lift bridge lay a logo or an egg, which would be interesting and weird. Jason then approached me. He had this idea for another business that would treat cows ethically and source milk in a natural way. He wanted to call this Jugs so that you had the same brand recognition and yeah, so this is still in concept phase, but one of my favorite things I've ever designed. It's the udders of a cow. And just to close this out, I was recently approached by some colleagues of mine who are doing a project this coming April called One River, Many Stories, where they ask journalists in our community to tell stories about the St. Louis River. It can be about the river itself, it can be about the communities that the river is on. But they approached me, they asked me to do a logo, so I thought about the St. Louis River. I thought about this idea of writing and these fountain pens. And this is the product of that, a fountain pen writing a story along the river that also doubles as a location pin. The best brands marry intelligent with insight, with imagination and craft. And hopefully tonight you've seen a display of how, a tiny glimpse into how our minds work in order to help others succeed and get our ideas across. Thank you.